Hey everyone, so about 3 months ago I got OSCP Plus certified and I'm just now getting around to making a video about it. So I wanted to do a review and a tips video just like I did for the CPTS, but two in one. Alright, so for those that don't know me, my name is Bruno and here's a timeline of my journey into cybersecurity. I have a bachelor's in software engineering and about 1 year experience as a software engineer in a professional setting. I have also earned the Hack the Box CPTS certification, as I already covered in the channel, and I have about 1 year of professional experience as an application security engineer. And of course, recently I got the OSCP Plus certification. So the takeaway here is that I am not someone who is brand new at cybersecurity, like so many people who are looking to get the OSCP Plus certification. I already have some experience, and I already have a prior certification in my belt, the CPTS. So this video is going to be a OSCP Plus review for CPTS holders. This is not meant to be a review for those with no prior certifications or no prior cybersecurity experience, because that is not my experience. So that's what I'm going to talk about. This is not going to be a super comprehensive analysis, simply because I didn't take as much notes and don't have as much to say as I had for the CPTS. But in any case, I will give you guys 5 pieces of advice for preparing and taking the OSCP Plus exam. Alright, so let's start by talking about what's similar between the OSCP and the CPTS. Both are general purpose junior penetration tester certifications, meaning that they are not meant to specialize you into a particular topic or area in offensive cybersecurity. Rather, they're meant to give you a good foundation for people with no prior cybersecurity experience. They both offer a course and a complementary exam, and there's a big intersection in the curriculum of these courses. They cover web penetration testing, privilege escalation, pivoting, Active Directory, what you would expect from a junior penetration tester. The exam are both time-bound CTF style exams, meaning that they give you a lab comprised of different VMs, and you need to find flags inside them and provide proof of finding these flags in a report alongside any security considerations for this mock penetration testing that you are taking part in. That being said, although the two certifications are similar, there are some key differences. For instance, as I said before, there is a large overlap between the two curriculum, but the OSCP Plus certification has some modules that are not present in the CPTS that I think are very interesting. More notably, the AWS pentesting modules, I believe there are 2, and cloud pentesting is not covered at all in the CPTS. So I think this is a plus for the OSCP Plus. And unlike the CPTS, you don't need to finish the OSCP Plus course called the PEN 200 in order to take the exam. You could just buy the voucher and take the exam right away, something you cannot do in the CPTS. Also, the OSCP Plus has a 25-hour long exam, unlike the CPTS, which is 10 days in length. So in the OSCP Plus, you have 24 hours for taking the exam, and then you have 24 more hours to work on your report and then present the report by the end of this time frame. Also, the exam is proctored, meaning that you have to go to a special website and share your screen and your webcam, and there's going to be an OffSec employee looking at you and making sure that you're not cheating, which does not happen in the CPTS exam. And of course, as everyone already knows, the OSCP Plus is much more expensive than the CPTS. Alright, so I am not going to make you wait until the end of the video to hear my opinion on which is better, the OSCP or the CPTS. Unfortunately, I believe my opinion is a bit boring because everyone I know who has taken both certifications pretty much agrees on the same opinion, which is that the CPTS covers more content in its course. The CPTS is way more difficult than the OSCP, and the CPTS has better learning material than the OSCP. So the CPTS is pretty much better in all regards compared to the OSCP, except one, which is that the OSCP looks way better on your resume than the CPTS. And for some people, that's all they're looking for. And I don't blame them, because it can be hard to get a first job in cybersecurity without the OSCP. So my advice is that the OSCP is not bad, but it's overpriced. So you should only buy it if, for a situation, you have the CPTS, but you're having trouble getting hired or getting interviews. So you could consider just buying the OSCP voucher yourself and just taking the exam, which you should be able to pass easily because you are CPTS certified and the CPTS is harder. Or if that's your first certification and you have money to spare and you would just like to get it over with and increase your chances as much as possible to getting a job quickly. So that was my very brief review of the OSCP Plus from a CPTS perspective. I understand that it was very short, but comparisons between the two certifications has already been made ad nauseum online. So I don't have much to add in that front, but I do have some advice to give you in case you have the CPTS and you're looking to get the OSCP. So let's get into it. So my first advice has to do with the fact that unlike the CPTS, you don't need to complete the entire Pen 200 course in order to take the OSCP exam. So of course, learning is never bad. You, as a hacker, you should always be aiming to learn new stuff all the time. But if for some reason you want to get the OSCP as fast as possible, you don't need to take every module in the course in order to be prepared for the exam. For instance, you can skip the AWS modules, which before I mentioned them and told them it was a nice plus for the OSCP. But in truth, to my knowledge, at least from the time of recording this video, the AWS modules could never be part of the exam. They don't have the infrastructure for do some mock AWS pen testing scenario in the exam environment. So you can ask around the Discord channel, but I believe this is still true. So if you would like to save some time, you can skip the AWS modules, at least for now. Also, the OSCP course also covers evasion techniques. A little bit, not a lot. This is mostly concerned for the other OffSec certifications, but they do touch a little bit on evasion, and you don't need it at all in the exam. They make that pretty clear. You're not going to be trying to evade EDR or antivirus or anything of the sort. So you can also skip evasion techniques if you want to. And also, you can skip the videos or skip the text. In the first module, OffSec makes a big deal about dual encoding and the need for you to take first read the text and then watch the videos and such for you to absorb all the knowledge. I believe this is bullshit. I don't know the psychology behind it, but the videos are pretty much just a woman narrating the text. So there's really no point in you doing both. You can just read like I did or just watch the videos, whatever floats your boat, but you don't need to do both. So my next advice pertains to the style of the CTF machines, because as I explained, both the CPTS and the OSCP are CTF style exams, and in that way they're similar, but different companies or different platforms have different approaches to capture the flag simulations. So you should take that in mind, because if you're like me, most of your CTF experience has been from Hack the Box and Try Hack Me, and OffSec is a different approach to capture the flag challenges. To be more precise, if you start doing OffSec labs like Proving Ground, the skill assessment and stuff, you will start to realize pretty soon that the VMs usually have many ports and many services open. And of course, most of them are not exploitable. There's no vulnerability in them. So you have to, keep looking until you finally find a service with a known vulnerability. And at that point, the exploitation usually is pretty easy. It's just, grabbing a proof of concept online or doing some pretty low level exploitation stuff. And then you get the flag or get a foothold or whatever. My point is, the style that OffSec takes into their CTF challengers are usually a needle in a haystack. That's why some people say that the OSCP is a enumeration exam, and I tend to agree with them. The difficulty in the exam is not exploiting, it's finding the vulnerability to exploit. You could argue that it's pretty realistic, because in real life, vulnerabilities are not always easy to find. But personally, I find it a little annoying, because it usually is pretty frustrating for you to be digging through many services and like 7 of them have nothing, and then the last one has a remote code execution exploit, which you just need to download a Python script from GitHub and then you're done. It's a little unrewarding, but that's the approach that OffSec takes. So I would recommend you to get accustomed to OffSec style of CTF machines. And you can do that by doing the Proving Grounds labs, which is pretty much like OffSec version of Hack the Box platform, where you can just pawn machines. I believe that's a pretty fair comparison. There's also skill assessments during the Pen 200 course, and there's also some challenge labs that you should take after finishing the Pen 200 course and before taking the exam. So keep that in mind. All right, so my next advice is for you to be careful not to soft lock yourself during the exam. If you don't know what a soft lock is, it's mostly a video game or speedrunning term. Is when you put the game state in a way that it is impossible for you to conclude the game or reach some objective, but the game has not officially failed you that yet. You haven't gotten a game over screen, but for all intents and purposes, you have failed the game. So that can happen during the exam, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about. So, as you may already know, there's flags throughout the lab environment in the OSCP, and each flag gives you some points. All flags do not give the same amount of points. So you have an Active Directory set comprised of 3 machines. Each machine has a flag. So the first flag gives you 10 points, the second one also gives you 10 points, and the third gives you 20 points. And besides the Active Directory set, you also have 3 independent machines. So each machine has a user flag, which gives you 10 points, and a root flag, which gives you 10 more points. So if you were to get all the flags in the exam, you will end the exam with 100 points. But you only need 70 to pass. So I wanted to go over all the possible passing scenarios for the exam. For instance, if you have found all 3 machines in the Active Directory set, you have 40 points already, but you need 70 to pass, 30 more. So you could get those 30 additional points by getting a foothold on each of the independent machines. So you capture the user flag, that gets you to 70 points. So you don't need necessarily to get all root flags or any root flags if you manage to get a foothold and completely compromise the Active Directory set. But if you fail to get a foothold on one of the machines, that's okay. You can make up for that by capturing the root flag on either one of the 2 individual machines that are left. But if you fail to get the last flag in the Active Directory set, you will not have 40 points, you have just 20 from the AD set. So you'll need to make up for that by getting the root flags on 2 of the 3 individual machines, bringing your points to 70. If you only manage to get the first flag in the first machine of the Active Directory set, that is a pretty bad situation to be in, but you can survive that by getting the root and the user flag for all 3 individual machines. That will bring you to 70 points as well. So what I mean by soft locks, you will see that if you fail to get even the first flag in the Active Directory set, you will not be able to get the second 2 flags in the AD set, because you can only get that second 10 points flag if you get the first one, and you cannot get the 20 points flag if you fail to get the second AD machine. So by failing the first machine in the AD set, you lock yourself out of 40 points. So even by getting all the other flags in the individual machines, you will only have at most 60 points, not enough for passing the exam. In a similar vein, if you fail to get the foothold on 2 of the 3 individual machines, you will lock yourself out of 40 points because you cannot get the root flag without getting the user flag first. So in that case, you will also fail the exam. So the conclusion here is you cannot fail the first AD flag. If you do so, as I explained, you will automatically fail the exam. In the same vein, you can only fail at 1 foothold. If you fail at 2 footholds, it's done. You failed the exam as well because you can only get at most 60 points. So My advice here, of course, is to don't neglect Active Directory, because if you fail the first flag, the first AD flag, it's over. And also, this is a more controversial take, but maybe in the OSCP exam, skills related to getting a initial foothold in a machine is more important than privilege escalation, because it's possible for you to pass the exam without getting a single privilege escalation flag. So keep that in mind. Beware of the soft locks and don't put yourself in a situation where you cannot finish the exam. Okay, now let's talk about the difficulty of the exam, which I found to be rather inconsistent. Because as I explained in my previous advice regarding soft locks, the exam difficulty is largely RNG based, meaning that your experience of the exam difficulty will largely rely on whether you got a difficult first flag in the Active Directory or difficult footholds in the individual machines. So I can talk about my experience. My AD set was super easy. Like it's hard to overstate how easy it was, at least for me, because as I mentioned in the start of the video, I have the CPTS, so I know a good amount about Active Directory exploitation, and the AD exploitation portion of the Pen 200 course, it's not that great. So I think I literally, I have a page for this next, but I think I literally finished it in like just a couple of minutes, the AD set, I mean. My first independent machine was also pretty easy. I pounded it very quickly. My second independent machine was rather difficult. In fact, after I finished the exam, I went looking on like ipsec.rocks website, in which you can search for terms, and that gives you hack-the-box machines that have something to do with that term. And I discovered that the exploitation chain for my machine that I got on the OSCP exam was found on an insane machine in hack-the-box. So it was a really large difficulty spike compared to the previous very easy independent machine. And regarding my third independent machine, I couldn't even get a foothold on it. I can't say if it's a very difficult machine or if I just have some blind spot in my skill set and I just couldn't find what I needed to find. But yeah, out of the three machines, one was easy, one was hard, and the other was so difficult I couldn't get a foothold. So it took me just under 4 hours for me to get to the passing grade of 70 points. By that point, I had already compromised the Active Directory portion of the exam and also gotten the user and root flag for the easy independent machine and just the user flag for the hard independent machine. And almost 2 hours later, I brought my score over to 80 points by getting the root flag on the difficult independent machine. So it took me just under 1 hour to compromise the entirety Active Directory set, then just under 1 hour to completely compromise the first independent machine, the easy one, and then almost 3 hours to compromise the second independent machine, where 2 hours were just for the privilege escalation. So 3 hours for the entire machine, 2 hours just for the privask. So the privask was really difficult. And of course, I tried 5 hours on host 5 without getting a foothold until I told myself, what am I doing this to myself? I don't need to prove anything. I already passed the exam. I got the CPTS. It's fine. I can just quit the exam now and have a passing score. So that's what I did. Sorry to say that I didn't try harder. I just, wanted this to be over with. It was not fun to be doing this exam. So I just call it quits. So the last advice I have to give here is related to the report writing portion of the exam. Just like the CPTS, the OSCP has a practical component to the exam, in which you have to find the flags in the lab, but there's also a report portion of the exam in which you have to provide a commercial grade, fully complete penetration testing report to go alongside your exam results. So in the CPTS, I recommended you to work on your report alongside your exploitation. So you would get a flag, then work on the report, get another flag, go back to the report. I recommended this because in the CPTS you have a fixed amount of time for both exploiting and writing the report. There's no separation between these two portions. In that case, I believe it's more efficient to you to go work on and off on the report rather than leaving it all to the very end. But in the OSCP, that is not the case. You have 24 hours just for working on the lab, and then your lab access is revoked, and you have 24 more hours to prepare a report. So it doesn't really make sense for you to be working on your report during those initial 24 hours, because you have 24 hours just work on the report. So don't waste them. Don't waste the time you could be using to exploit the machines to report right. So my advice again is for you to leave the report writing to the report writing section, but you must be very careful to take good notes, because if you don't take good notes while you still have the lab access, when you lose the access, you'll be done for. You cannot be able to reproduce in writing the things you did in the lab. So you should take very good notes, take screenshots, copy paste the contents of your terminal. Be very careful with the proof of flags, because OffSec is very particular in the way that you prove that you have captured a flag. You can see that in their website if you want to, but in short, you must output the contents of a flag file through a stable shell, like a reverse shell, using either cat on Linux or type or something equivalent on Windows. So you must be able to have a screenshot of the terminal session with the flag, and the same screenshot must also show the outputs of IP config or IF config for you to show like the network interface and so forth, I guess, to prove that you're not faking the screenshot. So you must be very careful with this, because if you forget to do this and you lose lab access, you will not be able to get the points for the flag, unfortunately. So please be careful. Leave the reporting to the end, but take good notes while still have access to the lab. So yeah, that was the video. I hope you have enjoyed my review and my advice. The OSCP was my second ever certification in cybersecurity, so I'm very excited about reaching this milestone. I remember that when I started to get into cybersecurity, having the OSCP seemed like this impossible challenge, but now that not only I have the certification, but it wasn't that difficult to pass, shows how much I've grown and how far along in my cybersecurity journey I'm going to. So yeah. As for what's next, I am currently working on the OSWP, the wireless pen testing certification by OffSec, because it comes free with the Learn One subscription, which is the one I got from OffSec. Then I'm likely going to try to get the OSWE, the web app penetration tester certification, also by OffSec. And I also want to get some red teaming certifications, like certified red teamer operator and certified red team leader. I believe that's what CRTL stands for. After that, I don't know. I guess I'll see. So thank you, and subscribe if you like to see more certification videos or more cybersecurity content. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I always read every single one of them and reply if need be. So yeah, bye.